Good afternoon, everyone. I am Radhika from HRKatha, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this edition of HRKatha Futurecast in association with People Business. Today, we are gathered for a conversation on the future of succession in BFSI, governance, leadership development, and future readiness. Before we introduce our panelists, I would like to invite Dr. Prajal Saha, founder and editor of HR Katha, to set the context for today's discussion. Prajal has written about business, leadership, and the workplace for nearly 3 decades and has closely observed how the world of work has evolved over that time. So, Prajal, over to you.
Thank you, Radhika. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I want to start with something a little uncomfortable. Most organizations will tell you they have a succession plan. Far fewer can tell you with real confidence that it works. I suspect that's exactly why the people on this panel are here, because they are the ones who have actually had to find out. And that's strange if you think about it, because most things in business get tested constantly. A succession plan can sit in a drawer looking perfectly reasonable for 5 years, 10 years, reviewed, updated, presented to the board, and nobody really questions it. It only gets tested the day someone actually has to walk into that role and lead. By then, it's too late to find out you got it wrong. That's a strange way to run something this important, especially in BFSI, where stakes aren't just internal. Regulators are watching, boards are watching, and trust takes years to build and very little time to lose. And the pace of change means the leader you prepared for today's role may not be ready for what the role looks like in 3 years or 5 years. So today isn't really about succession charts. It's about something harder to measure, whether the people on these charts are ready and whether we would even know. We have a wonderful set of leaders joining us who have lived this, not just studied it. Looking forward to hear where they agree and where they don't. Thank you, Sandeep, for associating with us on this. Thank you for being here. Radhika, back to you.
That That question of confidence under real pressure is exactly what we will be exploring today. Let me introduce the leaders joining us for this conversation. First, our moderator, Dr. Sandeep Krishnan, CEO and partner, People Business Consulting. Sandeep has over 2 decades of experience in leadership and consulting and works closely with organizations on leadership, talent, and succession. He will be steering our conversation today. Joining him are Pallav Mukherjee, CPO, Equita Small Finance Bank, a veteran HR leader with 3 decades of experience across BFSI and manufacturing, known for driving business results through people strategy. Up next is Preeti Singh, CPO, Universal Sompo General Insurance, a global HR leader with over 30 years of experience, adept at navigating complex matrix environments and building collaborative success. Up next, we have Sabah Adil, CHRO, Edelweiss Life Insurance, with 2 decades in HR and business roles. She has led cultural transformation and organizational capability building. Up next, we have Atul Mathur, AVP HR Aditya Birla Capital, a strategic people leader with more than 30 years of experience across diverse sectors, driving transformation through culture and technology. Up next, we have Jiva Balakrishnan, CHRO, Chol Mandalam Investment and Finance, with 3 decades of experience. He has steered organizational change across manufacturing, consulting, retail, and now BFSI. Up next, we have Dhanashree Thakkar, Head HR Distribution Training, Bharti AXA Life Insurance, with more than 20 years across HR data, sales, and transformation. He focuses on organization design and leadership coaching. Up next, we have Anju Jomre, CHRO Aditya Birla Money, with nearly 3 decades across manufacturing and financial services. He brings extensive experience in leadership continuity and governance in complex environments. And please welcome Karthik Kesarkar, Director, People Business Consulting, with 25 years of experience in leadership assessments and coaching. He works closely with CXOs on succession planning and talent strategy. So that gives us a terrific range of perspectives from across banking, insurance, financial services, and leadership consulting. With that, I'll hand the conversation over to Sandeep. So, Sandeep, over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much, Dr. Prajal and Radhika for this setup, and also all the panelists who have joined us today. We got a fantastic panelist group today, and we're speaking about a very interesting topic, and the topic is about succession. And we know right now as well as we are speaking, what's happening in one of the largest, most respected conglomerate in the country. We are speaking about the succession at the highest levels, and there is a lot of confusion, right? People are still speculating, thinking, and confusions everywhere. But it's also of national, international impact. So we are speaking about a topic which is exciting, interesting, and I think nothing can be as drama-full as consulting. But what we are trying to do here is in terms of a specific understanding, which is more scientific and also rooted in the reality of what's happening in the industry, which is the BFSI industry. And we got a fantastic panel out here. What we are going to do is the next 1.5 hours. Probably I'll start with me and Karthik will start with a quick view of what succession is happening on the view of the research in terms of succession. And we'll go to specific questions which are most relevant in this topic. We'll ask the panelists to give their expert opinion. We'll also have participants who have joined to give their perspective, so it becomes more engaging and involved from your point of view. I'll be sharing a I'll sharing a screen right now. If you just a minute. I hope you're able to see the screen.
Not at Sandeep.
Has it come up?
Yeah, seems to be coming up. Yeah, it's up, Sandeep.
It has come up? Radhika, can you just
Yes. Yes, it's
okay,
up.
perfect. So before I start, maybe if you can, this is we are using this tool called Slido, and if you can just scan the code here, this QR code, you can type in terms of what is the expectations from the session today. This will help the panelists also to customize a few thoughts. So just take 10 seconds for you to just scan this through the code, and you can put in your perspectives. I think that's some good stuff which is coming in there. New ideas, paradigm changes, BFSI specific information, transformation. I think what's new, what's happening in the industry, and how is readiness for that, leadership development, long-term vision for this, methodologies, AI link changes. I think interesting perspectives which are coming in from the team. I think our panelists have a lot of things to do today. Let's go on. I think this covers a lot of interesting perspectives which you have shared. Um, Thanks so much. I think buy-in is also a very interesting point, yeah, from an HR perspective. Cool. So what we are going to do now is I'm going to take around 5 to 7 minutes on the research that we have got. We looked at in terms of the confidence of the succession plan, the readiness depth, transition, what happens in succession planning when actually people leave, right? Then visibility of this whole succession planning, development initiatives that can be done, how the leader or the manager capability, if you are grooming up for the next level, how the immediate manager or the CXO level leaders can influence this whole thing, and shock preparedness. That means suddenly somebody leaves. Are we really prepared for this change? So, if you look at it from our confidence perspective, we see that many people are saying that we are very confident or moderately confident. The research says that there is a quite a bit of confidence that's almost to the tune of 80 to 90%, saying that we believe that we have got confidence. Our succession looks great. What the stress test reveals is that if somebody actually leaves, the key one or two people, we are in the dark. That means we are not sure whether how business will be exposed to. Can we actually manage the transition? That means we are saying that we have the confidence that it's good on paper, but really on reality, how is it going to be? That's going to be the challenge that we are going to face. The second reality is in terms, or the myth is in terms of saying that we got benches which are built, but maybe they are built for yesterday, not for tomorrow. That means, especially on the roles which are futuristic, we really don't know where we are going to get it. And is that even available within the industry also is a question mark. And that's going to be the biggest challenge, because with the transformation happening in the business and also transformation happening with the kind of skills that we need, are we really building for the future skills? And that's going to be the second real challenge. Third is in terms of the internal promotion paradox. That means we say that we got the talent pool. We have done the succession mapping, etc. It's been discussed every quarter in our quarterly reviews or the business review meetings at the highest levels. But when it comes to really filling up, are we really filling up from internally? And the data shows that only maybe approximately one third gets filled, and that opens up the build or buy question to all of us. Do we really trust our succession bench, or is it just there for the optics part? I'll leave it to Karthik now to take you through the rest of it. Karthik, up to you.
Right. Thanks, Sandeep. Yes, this is a really interesting one, right? In terms of data versus gut. Sandeep, if I could request you to keep that slide deck on.
The visibility
Thank you.
blackout.
Yes, uh, that's there. So this is a really interesting one in terms of data versus gut, right? How are organizations really taking decisions? Are they really um, basing their succession decisions around using data effectively, or is it more of gut coming in and manager input simply coming in and decisions being taken on that? In fact, interestingly, about a year and a half back, the RBI also had spoken about it, and where it said the payless ink is better than the best memory, and that is where data becomes really critical. And we've seen that barely in about 40% of the organization's data is used in a very structured manner. Other organizations, a large portion, about 60% of them, have been using data in bits and pieces. And this is where it becomes extremely critical. And this is even more so in organizations where the senior leadership is very tenured. The team knows each other. It becomes a bigger challenge actually out there because you feel that you know who my people are, right? I know who my people are. I know who my leaders are, and that is where it becomes actually even more important to be mindful of ensuring that we have all relevant data available while taking succession decisions. The next one it talks about the focus around readiness. I mean, fine, you've identified successors, but what are you doing in terms of developing capabilities of these leaders so that when the time comes, like Sandeep mentioned earlier, the people are ready, the leaders are ready to take up those next level roles. Again, about roughly about 40% of the organizations have said that they have structured learning journeys which are designed to the specific needs of the target role and the specific needs of the individuals, and that's a critical one. A lot of times we end up seeing that what's needed for the role itself is not necessarily defined in great detail, and it's just one or two perspectives that come into play. So, have organizations really defined what defines success in a role? Do you have well-defined success profiles in place? That's where we've seen that close to 60% of the organizations have that only in bits and pieces again. And that really impacts the readiness of leaders to take on the next level roles. And finally, last but not the least, it is the role of the manager. Again, at these levels, you have the CXOs, who typically are the leaders who need to groom talent within the organization. Now, how equipped are they, and how capable are they from a people leadership point of view, and how effectively are they playing the role of talent multipliers within the organization? There again, we saw that barely about 19% of the organization said that our leaders are playing an effective role as far as talent multipliers are concerned and grooming and developing talent internally, successors internally within the organization. While a vast majority feel that a lot can be done by leaders to develop, identify and develop successors within the organization. Over to you, Sandeep.
So to sum it up, what we have found in terms of research is that we see that while we have some of the organizations do have the succession planning framework and process in place, but do we trust people to be taking up those roles when it comes to the rubber hitting the road? So that's the important part, and I think there's a lot of focus which we need to look at in terms of building the future skills and looking at in terms of the future roles that might open up. And there should be a preparation for disruption as well if you're not developing the people and also aligning them. So your succession depth, I think the test of the succession is really about minimal disruption when these changes happen. So those are things which we really find in terms of the research, and it has become a business imperative. It's not just a CHR or a HR problem. It's really that the family businesses. You can look at from a regulator point of view. You get from a board point of view. Everybody's asking this question, and it's become really because it's become from an investor point of view also the sustainability point of view. So it's become a very critical element from a business, that succession planning. And I think from a CHRO's point of view, also senior leaders' point of view, this becomes a very critical agenda which they have to own with the board or the CEO. Broadly, because we've been working in this area of succession planning and leadership development over the last 2 decades, broadly what we see from a process is that we look at what is the critical roles, what is success profile for that role, what are those functional and leadership competencies which are required, mapping the readiness in terms of identifying talent and also developing. So that becomes the whole the gamut of activities that we really need to do from an HR process in partnership with the business stakeholders. No, I think what we're going to do now is to give you a chance to look at some of these questions which are very pertinent. And I'll ask one of the panelists to give their opinion in a crisp form in terms of what is their point of view. So the first question, which if you can also look at from your Slido, you can click here and then give your responses. Is succession planning optics to manage regulatory pressures? See, one of the interesting part of the BFSI industry is heavily regulatory driven, right? So, and regulator plays a role which is even going into the element of are we prepared from a succession planning point of view? So, is the businesses just managing it, or is it part of their system and processes? So, if you can just take a 30 seconds responding to this, and meanwhile, I'll request Dr. Mr. Pallab Mukherjee to give his comments on this particular topic, this particular question.
Okay, so my take is as follows. The regulator have started asking the questions in the last few years, but I don't think succession planning was part of CHRO agenda only for the last few years. It It was there, from quite some time back. Point A. Point B. Regulators talk about succession planning only at the board and SMP levels. Most organizations, however, look at critical roles. So, for example, you could have a person who's managing market risk, right? He may not be a senior management personnel. There could be a person who's managing taxation for you, who would be a three level down to the CFO. But those are critical roles for which succession planning is required, and that's what organizations probably are more attuned to and working on.
Sure, God. I think you're saying that this has been a mandate for CHROs for a long time now. Probably the regulator is also asking these questions, which adds to the relevance of it. Great point, Pallav. I think that's a very interesting point of view. To add to this, I think if Anju is here, Anju, I think Aditya Birla is known for a lot of these practices from a succession planning and leadership development. Any thoughts from your end, Anju, you can add to this? Anju, you there?
Sandeep, uh, I don't think we have Anju, Sandeep.
Okay, all right. She can't hear us. Atul probably is here from Aditya Birla Capital. Atul, would you like to add your points?
Yeah, sure. Sure, Sandeep. So, if you look at it, it's not optics. I would say it is something which is very, very crucial for the sustenance of the organization in times to come. Now, one key differentiation or a mindset shift that we all need to have is that succession planning is no longer a replacement planning piece, because the way things are changing, and I'm talking in a larger perspective over here, Sandeep. So, if you'll permit me to do that, uh, uh, you know, it's not. It is regulation. It is technology. It is business models. I mean, everything is changing, and therefore, when you're looking at succession planning from a futuristic perspective, it is not just optics. It is how we are preparing the organization to be successful in times to come, right? And therefore, a couple of things which I would like to state over here. One is that it will not immediately start from the with the next person in the queue, because it is quite possible that the changes that happen, right, could be of a different order. And therefore, what you might also find is that people who have that learning agility, people who have gone through different exposures, can actually be considered for that kind of a piece. So, the long and short of what I'm trying to say is that, one, it is not optics. Second, uh, the flavor of succession planning is changing drastically as we're moving ahead.
Thanks, Atul. I think that gives a perspective that it's a long-term view and it's a sustainability practice than anything else. Thanks so much for that. So the next question is regarding has the succession planning process impacted the build versus buy ratio of leaders within the organization over the years? So if you are evolving this as a practice, we ideally should say that a lot more internal talent is getting developed and they're ready to take on positions. And that should be also the culture of the organization, saying that we believe in our talent, they can take on the roles and they can leverage the internal culture and the practices much often. And probably I can invite Jiva to add some points here. Jiva, you've been in an organization which has have a tradition for such a long time. Uh, uh, so what is your point of view on this? And do you think that what is the maybe you can also add in terms of build versus buy. What do you favor and why? And do you think that BFSI can actually afford to build, because everybody is kind of scouting for the talent from outside? So what do you think is the right approach here?
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep. So, in fact, no, I also want to add to the earlier question. It is not necessarily that it is in the recent years. It's been there many years. Being born and brought up in Chola dynasty and working with Chola, and I always get influences from Rajaraja Chola. Who was known for a very strong building very strong succession pipeline. But yeah, so there are a lot of influences I can connect with what you're saying. and it's all about build. And I work in an organization where the build is very, very strong. So almost most of my senior leadership team, they all built within the organization. So it's not like no, everyone has come from outside. So most of the leaders have they've gone through multiple roles, but it's a very structured process. That's what I want to understand. It is not succession is not like you build a past. It is all about who built the past or who lived the past. It is all about who could really reimagine the business, who could really build the organization or keep the organization for next decade, right? So that's where I think Chola, we have invested a lot on building people over the years and building leaders so that they could understand every function. At the same time, they also know go through a lot of geographies so that they have a better understanding. At the same time, they are also built for reimagining the future. So I strongly support build, but build with a purpose, build with a very strong structure. I think that would really help.
Thanks, Diva. I think you're a proponent of building and waiting it out and making sure there's a sustainability from that perspective. Preeti, when you're looking, probably I'll get your perspective also, Preeti. Preeti, when you're looking at your perspective, do you think that sometimes you're forced to buy, and then you really how do you look at from that perspective? How is that going to have the change in terms of succession planning conversations that we have in the organization?
Thanks, Sandeep, for that question. It's an interesting one. We have a diverse panel from different industries. The take that I take on the succession planning is just not, it's not a prediction. For me, this is a preparation that no organization can predict who will become the CEO, but it can certainly create a pool of leaders who can be in the succession pipeline. And I'll give an example for the audience about the DBS Bank. They take succession as a long term strategic process. And one of the strongest examples that we have seen in the banking world, DBS was able to announce Stan Shusan as successor to long-serving CEO was Piyush Gupta, well ahead of the transition. The move was backed with the years of leadership rotation for that individual to get across wealth, consumer, institutional banking businesses, etc. So the industry really observes this that if you have a deep bench of leadership resources and deliberate on the preparation of the internal talent, there's going to be less need for us to really buy the talent. And succession, I think the future CEOs for sure they need the cross business exposure before they kind of get onto the board. I'll take another example where the leadership development has been a pipeline strategy of ICICI Bank, ICICI Group. They've invested very significantly in the leadership development rather than just relying only on the external hiring. I'm still a big proponent of building than buying, but let me come to that point very quickly later. So, what ICICI has done very strongly is they built the structures of leadership academies, internal talent development pathways, and we've seen and very structured succession focused capability building programs. And it's just have the leadership development and succession planning have worked in tandem to really create high potential individual leaders. But so that's those are the two examples that the industry has seen who had built the talent inside, and they have kind of had a very successful pipeline talent strategy to really have these successors. But what I see is the buy is also coming into the space if the BFSI sector is not really looking at some of the new age skills that are coming up, which is the digital and AI fluency, right? The regulatory agility. We're seeing the regulator and the compliance activities have gone heightened. So if there are talent who not been exposed to the enterprise-wide leadership, then we'll have to look at buying the talent. But as Jiva said, as an industry, there's a lot more focus on us to really build the talent, because that also creates a lot of hope for the individuals who are working, who have long tenure in the organization, to say, okay, I have a future for this company. Because if we start buying, then it will become a challenge for the internal talent, how they want to see the growth and the success of the story. So it's going to be, yes, it is a build and a buy, but a lot more focus still in the build. Buy when extreme circumstances where there is the talent pool for the succession is very shallow, and the organization is in a real hurry to make that change and then make that difference to the world. So
Sure.
those are my inputs, Sandeep.
Thank you so much. I think you bring that external perspective from DBS and connecting it to the future talent perspective in terms of or future skills when you're looking at buying talent. Thank you so much. So one question which we have is in terms of the clarity of, because the success profile gives us the clarity in terms of whom do we really groom for, right? What role do you really groom for? So if I'm looking at grooming for a CFO, what is the success profile? And success profile, if you look at it, it can have the behavioral, functional, and also some of the nuances of working in that particular organization, right? So anybody would, for example, Saba, would you like to share in terms of what kind of conversations do we have, especially saying if I'm grooming for my critical talent, what does the role entail, and how do we define that role itself? What from you when you are having those kind of conversation in your with your CXOs, what do you keep in mind? Do you have a format for it? Do you have a kind of understanding which is mutually agreed? Because that will say what kind of succession planning should we have and how do we develop people? So Saba, any thoughts from your end?
Yeah, sure. And first of all, thank you for having me here, and thanks for that question. Yes, success profiles and what's expected of a role is very, very important and imperative. One, from an outcome perspective, as to what we want that role to accomplish. The other aspect is about the culture fit. It's about the capabilities that are needed in the organization to for this person to be successful. So a success profile is very much important in terms of the leadership metrics that are there, in terms of cultural fit, the what the how the organization will get culture enhanced, how from a perspective of talent and culture, how does this all map together? So yes, from an outcome perspective to drive success, I think it's very important to have that perfect fit and match.
Thank you so much. I think this gives a 360-degree view. I think the investing that time, I think that's where HR can play a role also. The integrating what a real success profile for that particular role is, because that gives clarity in terms of what kind of assessments can we do, what kind of readiness can we measure, and what kind of development that we can do in terms of future placement.
Right.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Saba, for that. The next question, if I may look at it, see, for example, how do we engage the identify successes? There are organizations which I've seen that the successes themselves don't know they are actual successes, right? And they've been told, they've been discussed by somebody else, and then probably they don't even get that clarity, the what or for whom, which role they are groomed for. So I don't know whether Dhanshri is able to join. Dhanshri, can you hear us? She had some challenges joining. So, or Anju is there? She's not able to join? No. Okay, fine. So, if I may go back to you, Jiva, because you've been handling the learning part also in large organizations like Reliance before. And from your perspective, you've seen this engagement for identified successes quite closely. Do you think that in BFSI compared to the other industries that you've seen as well, where do we stand? Or is it a unwritten something which is in the mind of a few leaders, rather than there is a specific focus, or as you said, developing by purpose or for purpose? What is your view on this?
So, Sandeep, if I have to really look at my past organizations, and so I believe in, like, no, I don't think we should really tell them in advance, or rather, no, we need to prepare a set of leaders. That's what the organizations are for future. So when you are really preparing the organization for the future, everyone should be a performer. I don't believe in, I'm not a great fan of the so-called hypos, right? It's not that only a few cohort of people are hypos. Everyone in the organization should be high potential. That's what you need to really build. And it's all for the, if they are potential, if they have potential, and that role should really match their potential, and they have to play out that to their potential. So that's how I look at it. My view might be slightly different from the conventional, or rather, no, with the renowned management authors thought. So I don't believe in high potential. Everyone is a potential, and you need to build an organization for the future. And when you are really building an organization, you need to create that environment where uh, everyone is performing to the best of their potential, and you need to give them opportunities to work different roles. And for me, like for example, if I have to really build a business head, and there are verticals like no in financial services, sales, collection, credit. So all the three verticals, one has to have experience. I can give current my example of my current CEO. My current CEO joined as an executive in a branch, and then from there he moved to branch manager, and then area manager, and zonal manager, and then national, and now today he is the MD and CEO of this organization the last 25 30, 28 years. But he has gone through a kind of rigorous exposure, right? Sales, collection, credit, and north zone, south zone. So he has got exposure of everything. It is not about only the potential, also is groomed with the kind of exposure one gets. I think the organization has to build the infrastructure, one, to build their capability in multiple areas. Two, they should also give them exposure in different things. So that's where no, it's all should be democratized. I think that's what I experimented in my earlier organization also. I built an organization where people get, or the entire infrastructure is democratized. They get opportunity to choose what they want. It should be the responsibility of the employees rather than the organization. But the organization can choose and give opportunity whenever there is an opportunity. It's a career growth or succession plan is a vector diagram of three boxes, or three circles. One is individual aspiration, second one is individual capability, the third one is organization talent needs. Everything should come together. It is not, I have seen organization where they have identified somebody as a successor, they invest, but the guy, I mean, before taking up the new role, he would or he or she would leave the organization. So again, I mean, they're back to square one. So instead of that, they need to really have an infrastructure. I think that's what the CHRO's role. And while the CEO is owning the succession plan, the CHRO is an architect, right? So we need to really, he or she need to build an infrastructure so that people get opportunity to build their capability, prepare them for to meet their aspirations, and at the same time be ready for to meet the organization talent needs whenever it comes. I think that's the principle I follow, and I think fairly I was able to, I was successful in my earlier organization, and currently also this organization has a lot of success stories of building leaders, not by design. At the same time, it is again individuals' ability to move to that level. That's how we build it.
Thank- Thanks so much, Jiva, for that. I think your way of looking at it is more democratized learning and development, and also building the level of skills and capabilities to a higher level overall, so that there is a natural progression that happens from within. I think we have also, thanks so much for that perspective. Anju has also joined, I believe. Anju, do you have a different view of this? Because in terms of engaging with the identify successors and developing and retaining them, from your experience at Aditya Birla?
Sure. Thank you, Sandeep. And I was listening to Jiva. Apologies for joining in late. Yes, we do have a methodical approach in terms of identifying successors and developing them. We do identify who's ready now, who's ready in 1 to 2 years, and who's ready in 3 to 5 years. And each of these cohorts go through different development intervention through education, experience, and exposure. And we believe that to some extent you can develop people, but you need to give them the time so that they can practice the skills and show up that they are ready for the next role as and when they are ready, or whoever else is ready, because we would like to make it democratic. We open up the position, and whoever is the best resource gets the role. That's how it is.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So you're saying that, okay, while there is a larger development journey that people go through, you also have some specific focus and make sure that people are ready, and then it's up to whether they are ready enough, or they can move now, or you buy it from outside, etc. So that's a good point of view. Thank you so much for that. Now, this is a question that people see that is it an HR agenda, is it a CEO agenda, is it a board agenda? So, in your perspective, does the CEO own the succession planning agenda? So, probably I'll ask Saba first, and then probably Pallab can give his point of view. Do you think that what do you see? And of course you network with so many other CHROs as well. Does this become a CEO conversation, or has become more of a CHRO HR conversation? What is
I
your
think
point of
times have
view?
changed big time, and now it is an organization priority. That's where I see the focus shifting in our organization as well. And I think with the interactions also that I have with several others, Succession planning moved a notches above because obviously organizations want continuity. Talent wants to grow and develop and see the next for them as well. And I think if you have a proper talent management, a succession planning approach, because succession planning is one outcome of a very effective talent management and a robust talent process that goes behind it. And we've identified talent in terms of who are ready now, ready later, identified the critical talent as well, engaged with them meaningfully, put in those robust stress tests that are needed to really see the mettle of people. I really think that this becomes an organization agenda with a focus from NRC boards and the CEO driving it as well. So it's not only, I feel it's moved from just HR to do a lot of do a lot at the org level, because that is the best way you can retain people as well, because you can show them individual development paths, and whether you do it directly or you don't tell them, that is a different thing altogether. But the whole objective of we investing on people, we focusing on people and then growing them up to those roles in terms of those critical moments of test. Because I also feel that a succession planning is a lot about potential. Performance is one aspect of it, because that is what you see, in terms of performance versus potential, saying that, because succession planning you do for a role that is maybe a more complex, notches up higher, but you haven't seen those people for that role deliver yet. What you've seen is good performance, and of course without good performance there is no potential, but yet you are looking at to kind of succession planning is all about that. So it becomes an organization agenda to actually give those opportunities to people, to stress them in terms of those cross functional projects, in terms of developing a pipeline that can take on the organization from a continuity perspective and also complement it from a capability perspective. So I think the way it's coming up at this point in time, becoming the priority of the organization, this is key imperative, and it's moving in the right direction. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Sava. So you're saying that while CEOs are very much keen and is part of this whole conversation, and HR is doing its job in terms of making sure that we are building the foundation for the same. How do you, Pallab? What do you think? Does the CEO even care for our frameworks and the processes, etc., or it's just another HR stuff? What is your point of view?
See, I think I'll talk about Equitas. It's a slightly more evolved stuff out here as far as sub plan is concerned. The NRC and the board are involved. In fact, every 6 months we are expected to kind of give a periodic update to them. Statement A. Statement B. My CEO carries some percentage of his KPI as sub plan. So leadership development forms part of his KRA, and definitely mine, of course, right? So the point of it being an HR conversation is long gone. Other stuff that I would want to talk about is, we talked about how do we identify to tell or not to tell. All those conversations have happened, right? Now, what we have done is that we have created different cohorts, and it's not really ready now, etc. Is the second part. With it first we say that, okay, I think in some form I've talked about leadership across levels, right? So you have a CXO level. There you need a leadership pipeline. You have a CXO -1, -2 level, which probably is a little more directional in nature. That's the second cohort. And then you probably go down, and then you have a branch manager cohort, right? A branch manager level kind of cohort. So when you create the talent pool, and I'm sorry, I need to differ with Jiva that I don't know if everybody can be considered as part of talent pool, probably. And one of the constraints really is that I'm pretty sure everyone, but we have to also consider the time and energy that the HR can and the leader can spend on certain set of people, right? Because this requires time, this requires effort. So what we have done is that we have at Equitas we have done something called an aspiration survey as well. So we identify people at cohorts. We kind of administer something called an aspiration survey. We try and take results of this aspiration survey, try to match them into various roles as we find. But we do tell people that, look, you are being looked at for the CRO role, or whatever it might be, right? Or as a potential branch manager, potential area manager, whatever the case is. But again, you are not the only one. There would be other people in the organization who are uh, part of the race, if I may call it. And yeah, and whatever Anju said on how we kind of uh, choose the right person at the right time, right? If somebody gets hit by a bus today, then I need to have somebody who's ready today. 1 year down the line, the person who probably I developed more during the last 1 year, he or she might be a better fit to the role.
So thank you so much, Pallab, for giving that perspective in terms of what really happens in your organization and sharing the practice. And I think this aspiration stuff also brings in the perspective of the individual into the play and how do you match that to the interest. It brings me some memories about when I was owning the succession planning agenda at IBM globally, and then we used to have this 5 minutes drill where whenever the role opens up at a particular level and above globally, they used to have something called the five, where the successes have been discussed, and one of those points is their aspiration, where they at this point of time they really want to move into that role or something like that. So, interesting point. Thank you so much, Pallab, for sharing this.
Thank you.
The other question is in terms of, and after this, I would request my colleague Karthik to take over. Do you think that with talent war and scarcity, is it possible to have 2 to 3 successor depth and waiting it out for a while? Because by the time you wait it out, that person is already ready now for somebody else. So in that perspective, Atul, from your experience, do you think that this depth of which is classically what we say is that a good depth is to have 2 to 3 successors, etc. Is it really relevant in a fast-paced industry like BFSI, where every guy who has even at least 60% ready is a great talent for the somebody else? What is your point of view, Atul, on this? No, Atul, on this.
So Sandeep, see, there are two lenses that we need to look at it from. From a here and now perspective, like what Palla was speaking and others were speaking over here, right? Yes, because we have a very robust talent management process, and like Anju was mentioning it, that you have people whom you're grooming, and it's not just the next level, but even below that, you're grooming, you're developing them, in terms of coming up for the, for the higher positions, and that's where you have this 1 to 2 years and ready now and all. But the other important thing which I would again like to highlight over here is, are we looking at it from a future readiness perspective? Case in point, 10 years back, did you expect fintechs to compete with traditional BFSI companies? No. Now, if you were only planning from the traditional perspective, then you would have been nowhere at all. And that's where I think the companies need to be a lot more agile. What we are moving towards now is a skills industry, right? And that is what we need to be prepared for. So, for example, generative AI in the last few years has created a lot of disruption. And you still have a debate whether we should use it, we should not use it, the token usage, things, allied factors over there. So I'm saying that from a future ready perspective, what's really important is that the people who are there in the organization, of course, we would like to be democratic and we definitely do development at a larger scale. But yes, the identified people, like I think Jiva was mentioning earlier, we need to give them different kind of exposures, which we do. And exposure is not just job rotation. That is important. But what are the other kind of exposures you are giving them? Are you giving them, let's say, some outside in perspectives? So, for example, we have a lot of industry immersions where we keep sending people out of the country, within the country, different industries, not necessarily BFSI only. Number two, also, for example, we have a very unique concept in Aditya Birla Group, which is called NLO, Natural Learning Opportunity, where people, let's say in the middle management cadre or slightly higher up, okay, are also made to sit through meetings like a fly on the wall, which are strategic meetings where things are being discussed. Idea is that they should start absorbing and looking at it from that perspective. So, to answer your question, one, yes, the traditional approach, yes, depth is there. But from a future ready, because you do not know, just like COVID hit us, were we prepared for COVID? Right? And therefore, what I'm saying is that that agility, that exposure, that way of looking at things is important. And therefore, the skills would be more important. And are we developing those skills? Are we giving exposure to those skills so that people can actually prepare themselves for the future? I don't know whether I've been able to answer your question entirely, but I would look at it from these two perspectives.
Thank you so much. So I think what you're saying is that whether 2 to 3 successor depth, etc., is fine, but you're also looking at what kind of skills and what kind of future skills are we developing, and how can we, at least think a little bit futuristic from that perspective. Saba, from your perspective, what do you think? Do you think that this classical approach for 2 to 3 successors will work?
Yeah, I think it's ready now, ready later, and the emergency candidate that you have, and having succession depths that are there, that is sufficient. And I would say not to categorize in two or three. Two or three, I think, is what generally organizations have, but it is about the capability set we are building in the organization. I would go to that rather than just looking at the number of people with those skill sets and stuff like that. But it's more of a capability cohort. What are we building for? Are we building for agility? Is that becoming the culture of the organization? That's what, so as an example, if are we building, an aspect of adaptability in a changing world order, or AI skills or data technology, is that becoming a culture of the organization? And it's seeping across levels. I think those are things that we need to look at as well. So yes, 2, 3 is good enough if you have depth in terms of the ready now, ready later emergency. I would also say along with that, have an external list ready, that in case what happens if you want, for example, complementing capabilities that you don't have today in the organization. Will we buy for that? Do we, or if we need to do transformation work, will we need to engage external talent for that? So there's a different need at points in time, and I think we should be open to it, build the depths in the organization in terms of the culture largely, also be open in terms of where we need to hire externally as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective, Saba. This is two questions we have, and I think probably I'll ask um, uh, first Preeti and probably Anju to give a perspective on this. Because traditionally, if you look at the classic, if you watch movies from starting from the Wolf of the Wall Street, kind of is seen as a very macho industry, right? In terms of a very manly kind of an industry, which BFSI has been. But it's slowly evolved over a period of time, and it has become a lot more inclusive and diverse as an industry. And we can see that from the panelists we have today here as well. What do you think that about the female representation? And we can also look at the levels, etc. And we had some classic great examples which had come in the past from ICICI and all. What do you think that is happening? Is it a very inclusive industry from, at least from a gender perspective? And how do you see the leadership or the CXO level roles, or CXO -1 roles at the in this industry? Preeti, maybe you can start, and then Anju, if you could add to that.
I think Preeti just dropped off. Sandeep.
Yeah.
I think Anju, if I can request you to comment on this.
Sure. Sure. So I think the industry is absolutely gender inclusive, and this is one of the industries where you see maximum participation of females, particularly. But I would like to call out saying diversity is not only about gender. Uh, Organizations are evolving, and you look beyond gender. You look at age, you look at ability, you look at cultures, and all of that. But having said that, let's focus on gender for now. To begin with, at the early ages, we have good participation. It could be, somewhere around 40-50% in the early roles. But as we move to middle management, the pipeline starts shrinking. If you go to the CXO levels, the pipeline is really limited. And in our organization, whether it is a male or a female, as I said, it is meritocratic. We just look at who brings what skills and capabilities and potential to the table, and basis that the individual is given the opportunities to grow. And of course, development happens thereon. But as a simple answer to your question, is it gender inclusive? Absolutely. But it starts thinning at the top.
But does this conversation also happen when you have in succession planning discussions at the highest level?
Yes.
Is the diversity an element of discussions in the BFSI I think anybody, Anju, you can add here, and also anybody else also can add to that perspective. This is that a key consideration?
Yes, yes, it does. And in fact, we look at, why diversity is shrinking, which belt it is shrinking, how can we improve, is there categoric interventions that you need to do in a particular region. Typically, it is low in smaller regions, tier 3 cities at the middle and the top. And therefore, you even that influx of that population is limited. So that's where it gets a little bit of challenging. But when you go to the campus, when you look at hiring, we absolutely are gungo about getting equal numbers there.
Anybody else would like to add from the panel here on this point?
Yeah, I think in across the talent management process is what I would say. Gender representation. One aspect is about diversity itself. One is gender, and then there is the other thing, the differential industries, the thinking, all of that, and the various profiles people are coming from and all. I think it's forming large part of the entire talent management process now, and that's a good thing because that's a feeder to the entire succession planning process, right from hiring to everywhere else. But the intent is that how do you, at a feeder level, which is at a recruitment pool level or at a succession planning level or at a high potential program level, how do you seed in more diversity in there? And how do you ensure, like what Anju said, dropping off is lesser as you go up the ladder? How are organization having that entire ecosystem in? So I would say it gets more broader and wider because succession planning will be one part of the process, but everywhere in the entire talent management journey, how do we ensure that we have it well represented and there is enough and more merit case of having diversity in? So how do you get it more represented? How do you ensure drop-offs at the senior levels are lesser? How does the ecosystem and the culture supports a flexible workforce if that's a requirement? So the conversation is now running holistic across the talent management processes, including the high potential programs.
That's fantastic. And so it looks like the industry is quite evolving, and I think it's evolved already. And these kind of evolved conversations are happening. And thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that perspective. Thank you
And
so
there are
much.
key metrics of success as well. That what is the percentage? What is it? Have we considered at a feeder level? What is the kind of pool mix that is coming in? So I think those are all relevant questions that the industry is veering towards.
Um,
Sandeep?
Karthik, you can go ahead if you like. From your perspective, you can start.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Thanks, Sandeep. Sabha, just staying with that point, that was an interesting point that you made out there in terms of differential industries as well. Just wanted to understand how open is the BFSI sector right now, and others as well, once Sabha makes her comments, in terms of looking at talent from outside the industry, and realistically speaking, at what levels is that possible to do?
Yeah, see, some of the talent will come from the industry because of the nature of the skill set that is needed, actuarial, underwriting. There are lots of technical skills that are needed, so that will come from the industry. But there's a lot of talent that is hired from outside as well, which is more for generic roles. But yes, of course, it is more at this stage. It is more at the entry level, mid level, and the senior level is generally you would have the learning curve to be lesser, and that's a practical aspect I'm giving you. How much so ever we want to say that yeah, it's good to bring talent from outside, and definitely we consciously also build it in various functions which are support functions where the key skills sets are more generic across. Having said it, that these are there are also talent that you need to feed in, like for example on the AI, the data, the cyber security, which is all coming from outside. So it's also a mix of the talent that is
Right.
needed, but of course they have to be trained on the risk aspect, on the nuances of the industry as well, on the regulatory aspects as well. So it's a good combination. I would say the industry
Right.
is quite open where it needs to be open, and that's how. And most of the talent, by the way, 20 years back from life insurance come from outside. So it's like it's been kind of nascent in that sense as relative to other industries. So it's been quite open on, I would say, on various other fields of tech, data, and the shared services.
Sure, fair enough. That's an interesting point, Sabha. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Anyone else has similar experiences or anything you're doing differently?
So I can go. Yeah, I would agree with Sabah. It's easier to get people from diversified industries to come and learn the skills in your business, and that's what we encourage early enough. In fact, in the group, we
Right.
encourage 2 by 2 by 2, which is people moving into 2 businesses, 2 geographies, and 2 functions early enough before they become a CXO. Because as they move up the ladder, then the functional skills are more needed. But typically in the fungible areas, we are absolutely open to people coming in from different industries. Even in financial industry, there is a lot of cross mobility. But there are specialist areas. For example, you have research areas, you have say stocks and securities like ours, where it becomes a little more sticky because you need that expertise, because you are giving advice to the customer. So that's where it becomes a little more tricky, and therefore we look at specialization, and people generally grow vertically. But otherwise, in the other functions, people grow laterally, spirally within different organizations, and they keep
Right.
exploring different roles.
So, Karthik,
Two by
may
two by
I?
two as well as the depth as you move to the CXO levels in the organization. Yes, Shiva, please, sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. I just want to know.
Hello. Yes, Shiva, please go on.
Am I audible? Audible. Yeah. I'm just trying to build one on what has been discussed. So, in fact, I don't have any experience in financial services. This is my first no financial service experience after 30 years. So you may argue that no, it is HR, but again, this industry, whatever I have seen, mostly I've interacted with people with very strong experience in this industry. So that's how no we also know that the competition is tough, and we might be growing well, and at the same time our competition is also growing, right? So what are the key different capabilities we are bringing to the table? How do we really get people from other organization, other industry also to challenge the way we are being operating? I don't think cloning the leaders who built the business is required, but I don't think in our current situation and for the future, it is we need to really look at leaders who can really reimagine the whole thing, right? I think that is possible
Right.
with diverse people, diverse leaders. I think that's where we need to really encourage people from diverse industries. And I do like Atul's point. How do we really get our leaders to get industry immersion and get different perspective from other industries, right? So one of the initiative what we are doing is alumni. So whoever left us, they're also our potential successors. So they bring an outside perspective, and they are also being considered, and we closely engage with them. And there is a planned succession plan to get them back as a leader, right? So they also have our own way of working. At the same time, they get different perspective from the industry as well. So that's another thing which we are considering. So alumni is also another structured initiative to build successes.
Right. That's a very interesting one, Jiva. Not many organizations would want to take back employees who've kind of gone out. The fact that you're looking at alumni as a potential succession planning, succession pool is a very interesting and a different perspective that you've brought in out there. Wonderful. So while we spoke about diversity, we spoke about the depth of the succession pipeline. What about the time frame? What do you think is a realistic time frame to plan for in today's day and age? Pallav, if I can go back to you on that from a succession planning point of view. When you say we're
Yes.
saying ready now, ready 1 to 2 years, ready. Sometimes organizations even talk about 3 to 5 years. Is that really realistic? I mean, 3 to 5 years. What do you think is a reasonable time frame to plan in today's day and age?
No, I'm sorry. This depends a little bit on the level that you are looking at, right? At a CXO level, 3 to 4 years is absolutely fine because as you grow up the hierarchy, the positions being available is also a point, right? So you know retirement dates for for more people, and so you
Right.
know that that's when the penny drops. Of course, there are external forces which happen, but again, in most organizations, I have seen as the hierarchy increases, the attrition rates also decreases substantially. And if for the right role, for the right position, there could be people who may be wanting to wait. Someone talked about people being 60% ready and they being poached by other organizations. Absolutely true, but probably the 90% ready person, you will protect with all you can have, right? So that's the story that most organizations build on. The issue I think someone touched upon earlier, but I'll talk a little bit, is on how do we predict what we need. That's becoming more and more challenging as we move forward, right? We are, for example, cybersecurity, say 3 years back or 4 years back, yes, it was there, but the scale of the cybersecurity, the fact that the CISO is now being kind of talked about, that he or she should kind of report into a whole-time director in some form, right? So those are changes that's happening, which uh, so the scale and size of the job has increased substantially, right? So
Right.
similarly for most uh, tech oriented role, operations is another area. um, there was a time and age when operations meant that you need to know re-engineering, you need to know how do you kind of do Six Sigma and the works. Today, the operations person, the only question probably uh, the leader is asking is that, okay, how can you manage operations which is 3x the size with 10% of people? That's it. And if that's the pace at which the ask of the leadership is changing. And it probably applies to HR, probably applies to business, and every other function one can dream of. So the issue is not so much about the timeline. The issue is about the skill set, as I think Anju put
Mhm.
across that. What's the skills for the future, and can you look in and predict most of it? Um, so
Right.
that's the critical skill that the board, the CHR, and the CEO has to do. And once we predict the landscape, then the rest of it probably is a little easier.
Right, sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. So what you're saying is focus on skills for the future, look at the kind of incumbents and successors you have, and accordingly determine the time frame on a case-to-case basis, and not really as a blanket formula as such. Wonderful.
One,
Thank you so
one
much.
question that I have, and I've heard from many of the HR people as well, this one is, we do all these things in terms of preparing future skills, putting people onto the bench and everything. But when it comes, and that's a trust thing which we came in the research as well, that when it comes to the final position being open and be given the job, sometimes mostly somebody else comes in, and that's the saddest part, right? And a lot of HR people itself are disillusioned because of that. They've been rotated, given multiple opportunities, stretch assignments, everything that HR could have done, they have been done, but finally the call is that somebody else from outside comes in. So do you think that what kind of does it mean that all the efforts are wasted, or what do you think is the reality behind this?
So
How
can I
can a
take that?
HR person
I'm
answer a
not I'm
person
not
who's
Yeah.
not got
sure
the
of,
job?
of that. I'm not sure of that, Sandeep. Um, in I don't know, in my manager, whatever CXO team, whatever you want to call it, 15 of us. They're probably around five, so around 35 odd percentage would be inside groomed as we speak, and we are a 10-year-old bank, right? As I said, if the thing is that I am predicting that the person is going to be ready or the successor is going to be ready in 3 years, and the drop dead happens today, then I might go outside and have a look. Otherwise, I would tend to imagine that most organizations would prefer a person who's groomed internally to take on the role, right? Um, Jiva's point is interesting, where he's talked about alumni. Um, because the alumni also probably knows or was attuned to your culture, and culture plays a big factor in senior leadership success, right? I've always maintained that beyond 20 years of experience, and if you've reached the level that you're supposed to reach, it doesn't. The only thing that matters is your chemistry and culture with the board and senior management. That's the only thing that kind of determines success in an organization. So uh, most organizations would prefer an insider if they're grooming him or her for the role.
So thanks,
If I could
Pallab,
just
for that.
add,
I think,
Sandeep,
yeah, I think probably
sorry,
go
if I
to
could just
Anju. Anju was going to share and then go to Atul. Is that
No,
okay?
I'll go after Atul. Atul, why don't you
Okay,
go
sure.
first?
You were about to
thanks,
speak.
Sanju.
That's why I thought Anju will go first. Thanks, Atul.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, see, I would agree with Pallav that it's not that it's going waste. For example, in our organization, two CEOs have grown from within. Interestingly, one chief distribution officer, CDO, was a CFO earlier. So, what we are saying is that we are grooming people. But the point which I tried to make earlier also, and I'll again repeat it for for the sake of repetition, we need to look at the potential from a slightly different perspective, not just the traditional way of looking at potential, because the way the industry is changing, the way the ecosystem is changing, we need people who have the right potential and not potential in a classical sense. Potential from a learnability perspective, potential from a adaptability perspective, potential from the ability to take risks and do things over there. We had a HR head for one of our businesses who was made chief operating officer with no prior background of operations, and she did extremely well. So what I'm saying is that the entire piece is going through a shift at this point of time. So yes, whereas the traditional things continue, but I think progressive organizations are ones which are also understanding the changing scenario and not just hanging on to what was. It's like the same thing. What got you here won't get you there. The cliched statement. So, definitely there is an in-house, and that's where the exposures, the skill development, the democratization of skills across levels is helping in terms of creating the future-ready, leader. Sorry, back to you, Anju.
So just adding on to what Atul said, what we also do, Sandeep, is we look at candidates for each role. We have at least few internal as well as few external candidates. I'm talking about very senior positions, and the decision maker is going to be investing his or her money right in the business, so he or she would want to make the best decision looking at the candidate, whether the candidate is going to take my organization 10x. So in that scenario, the decision maker prefers to take a decision on the person who's had multiple experiences, exposures at different situations, scenarios, ability to take risk, the way Atul clarified. Someone who can thrive in a difficult situation given so much of volatility. If the person has only done one line of business or one product or one function, the ability of that person to transform in a difficult situation would be limited, and therefore the role is generally given to someone who's had multiple experiences, exposures, either in functions or businesses or geographies, because that person's decision is that much more stronger in any given situation, because he or she would have tried multiple things, taken risk, adapted to different situations, and that's how our stakeholder would prefer to take that decision accordingly.
Perfect. So I think one good thing is that I think the intent is to give that person the opportunity and grow from within and be the first choice, and that's what I'm hearing from all of you. And we are ready to take more risk on the internal person than an external person, and I think that's a beautiful statement. I think that's good viewpoint which I'm getting from the leaders here.
Just
And
just to
yeah.
add there, we generally say if the internal person is 60-70% ready, you should take a bet, because you're ideally taking 100% bet on an external candidate.
Known devil is better
Fair
than the
point.
unknown
Fair point.
angel kind of a thing. Anyways, great, fantastic. I think that's what we wanted to hear as well, because people are putting in the effort and the learning and the loyalty. I think somewhere they should be given that opportunity as well. And other thing which I think we had fantastic